You want to do something like, expand to your natural at a normal time. Take your third at a time that might be a little bit risky. Maybe if by some miracle you can figure out how to get a fourth on something pretty thin, you can take that. And you'll be a little bit behind on food. But then you want to explode forward with the most outrageous number of unit-producing structures. Yeah, look at this. 8 barracks. 2 more going down. 10 barracks coming forward. Meanwhile, if we look back in Lenin's main, he really has only had, looks like 6 barracks. Not going to be able to compete with this 8, soon-to-be 10 racks count of his opponent. So that is really why we're seeing Braddock start to pull ahead as we get closer and closer to the max point. They were pretty even, especially after that big battle that happened here. But of course, if you don't pay attention for 2 seconds, your building will fall immediately. And hey, 2 medevacs here. Just want to point them out. This is really becoming what I would call a trademark Braddock move. As you have a big attack going on at, the north end of stuff. Uh-oh, looks like there is just way too much stuff here by Lenin. Here comes some trademark Braddock. I was watching this thing and Braddock is screwed. Oh! The topsy-turvy. Throwing his opponent off. And easily pulling back with these medevacs. Again, because he knows his opponent doesn't have that many Vikings. Very easy to do fancy stuff with medevacs in that regard. And it's always an interesting trade-off, because if his opponent suddenly started making a bunch of medevacs, and that would make Braddock's Marauders a lot stronger. And Braddock, of course, being himself, not letting an imposter play upon his account, is going to be doing another little drop here, just to be obnoxious, and of course just to be awesome. And again, pretty even food counts. Braddock slowly pulling ahead, getting in an absolutely amazing position so that all units are funneled through this tiny choke and through this tiny choke. But now Braddock attacking at 2 different possible angles. Lenin trying to load up some stuff and pull back, but just gigantic arc, and with too many Marauders to be able to deal with. Braddock is getting the best arc in the universe, and look at that, Jesus. Braddock didn't drop any food, and Lenin dropped like 60 or something insane. Braddock truly is a Gosu among men. I'm going to take just a few questions. Running a little bit over because, as you might expect, with the crash, things got delayed. Brr. But I'm seeing 3 big chunks in my mind. First of all, the openings that we saw. But then in the mid-game, it's this emphasis on Marauders, maybe throwing in a little bit of peppering of tanks and Thors and this good stuff. And in later stages of the game, I'm starting to see the real use of medevacs if your opponent doesn't have an air advantage, and just big Marauder groups and Marauder movement. Yeah, cool stuff. So that last chunk, the Marauders with the Marauder movement and the medevac drops, you can use that when another strategy completely independently of our first 2, opening and mid-game chunks. Nice little end-game plays there. Once you start dividing them up like this way into your pocket, you can easily think of creative ways to incorporate it into your play. So I will take some questions. It appears that there is a lot of lag going on between what I say and stuff. Alright, so here we go. So Genexus says, how do you break or avoid a Viking race, and how do you deal with their Vikings giving extra range to the tanks? So again, the easiest way to sidestep this is to just start getting a lot of ground units, because the Vikings aren't really too good against that many ground units, as I rub my little eyes that are very dry from working all day. In some circumstances, it might be to your benefit. So for instance, let's say I'm at the 12 o'clock position on Lost Temple, and you're at the 9 o'clock position. There's a cliff overlooking your natural on Lost Temple, and there's his cliff overlooking his, and both of your cliffs are really close. So a lot of times you want to engage in a Viking race, and if you have a few tricks up your sleeve, you can swing way gigantically far ahead. For instance, doing the Druby style build, where I'm going to play defensively now to get my expansion up, but then shove you over with insane Viking numbers later on. Big thumbs up in my book. Yeah, I mean, the vague answer for how you break it is just ground units in general. But that's what makes Terran vs. Terran a very difficult and dynamic matchup, because there's all these switching between who wants air control in what regard. So yeah, I'm just going to take 2 or so more questions, just because this was going a little bit long. So, Death Or says, Braddock seemed very vulnerable to aggression early on. Do you think he would be able to handle early aggression with this build properly? I actually do, because if you rush for a Banshee, you get it out so fast. Oh my god, it comes out fast. And if you opened up like Marine Hellion, you're pretty much foolproof to any sort of Marine antic stuff early on. The only thing you'd really be scared about is if he did some sort of fast tank push, and I personally have lost when I try to do a very fast Marine tank push against a Terran player who was rushing Banshees. I have experienced how fast those Banshees do pop out. You have to pull some SCVs off a little bit, but you end up being completely fine. I really do like that one quite a bit, that fast Banshee opening, especially Braddock's clever use of cloak. Here's a great question by Zinrock about how do you think nukes will fit into future SC2 Pro games. I'm going to answer it to the Terran vs. Terran style. Is that in Brood War, being in an entrenched position was so critical. Getting your tanks at a good ledge to overlook a key pathway. So you'd end up with these long lines of tanks that spread across the map. And nukes are a great way to bust through that. In StarCraft 1, they were a little bit inconvenient to get. You had to get an add-on to the science facility, and then you had to get the ghosts and the nuke, and you had to get a command center with an add-on. It was a little bit out of the way. And to be honest, if you had enough money and enough time to start focusing on getting add-ons on your science facility, you'd probably be wanting to get a physics lab anyways, so you could get battle cruisers. Yeah, battle cruisers. But in this game, in StarCraft 2, you just need a Ghost Academy, and you can just immediately get a nuke. So I think that nukes will be a great way to bust entrenched positions. And again, you heard me mention how medevac drops really strong because Terran is pretty immobile in the later stages of the game. Nukes are another great way to abuse that immobility. It's one of those things where people really need to flesh out the mid-game before even worrying about the nukes. And if you were to try to play around with nukes to be ahead of your time, I think you would be putting yourself back, to be honest. You can put the idea in your back pocket and pull it out whenever it's necessary and say, yeah, I could apply nukes to help this situation. But I don't see any reason to force nukes into your play. So I am going to take just one more question. Oh, here's a great one by J296 who says, Dear Dana and Braddock didn't really seem to have all that many Ravens ever. Do you think his army composition would be significantly stronger with some Ravens? I love Ravens. I am a Raven fan. I do like the cool stuff that Braddock was doing with the Starport with the reactor, so perhaps he could, instead of getting, that 11th barracks, he could just throw down another Starport and begin pumping out Ravens. Ravens are an unbelievable way to boost your Marauders, especially if you have some air control with your Vikings, so you don't lose your Ravens to his Vikings. Definitely think that that's going to be some quality technique stuff. And I also wouldn't overthink stuff too much, again, because the way that was worded, and of course it makes sense that it was worded as a question, because I said I'll take questions. But if you're by yourself and you're watching replays, and you think, well, why isn't he getting Ravens here? If you're having trouble understanding his strategy altogether, don't concern yourself too much with asking questions that could be about what are ways to improve it. So, well, why didn't he get any Ravens in these two games? Well, you know what? Let me watch 15 games of him doing something like this and try to see if Ravens would feel nice in there. And definitely, Ravens are obviously going to be good in any army. But the real question is, can you afford them? Does it coincide well with the resource distribution? In this case, absolutely, because, if you're Marauders, 100 minerals, 25 gas, you're going to build up gas, so you're going to have enough money for Ravens. Like that idea about the Ravens. So, again, sincerest apology about the crash. Gonna let Ustream know what's up so they can monitor, because I can see that there were actually 20,000 refreshes throughout the course of this. It's just kind of a lot. But tomorrow, QXC is coming on the air. QXC. So we're going to be watching one of his epic games, and he'll be giving some live commentary, very similar to what we did with the Little One. So yeah, QXC going to be coming on. So yeah, I am going to be wrapping up now because I've honestly had this door shut all day because I've been working for like 12 hours, so it is so hot in my room. I feel like molten lava. So I am going to be signing out, and you should go play around in some single player. Whether it be StarCraft 2 training or just go play the StarCraft 1 single player, because that is incredibly fun. I am signing out. Thanks so much, and see ya.